to another edition of the Strange Days audiocast with your host, Jeffery Chapman.
Hey everybody, it's your man about town, Jeffery Chapman, aka DJ Chili J, aka Sport Coach, and today I'm also supposed to be the man with the plan, part 2 of what we're supposed to be doing in the struggle against Donald Trump's open attack against this country's democratic system of government. Before we get started, though, I am first deeply moved to say a word of support, a word of acknowledgement, and thanks to all of you courageous people across the nation who have been protesting nationwide, over 1,800 protests, to preserve the sanctity of our states against the abuse of federal authority being perpetrated by the Orange Man. And I need to turn to a lot of people of color who are supporting what is clearly a white nationalist government and ask them if they honestly believe that they are not next. So many black men, so many Latinos, so many other immigrants who have allowed wicked people harboring these nationalist intents and ideologies to brainwash them into believing that they are somehow on the right side of this political era. The Republican Party, thanks to Trump, has become the party of liars. It's become the party of thievery, the party of the grift, and the party of racism. Now, some of you might be listening thinking, racism? But, you know, whenever I watch a Trump rally, I always see plenty of people of color sitting in the back behind the podium. Yeah, it does appear like they're strategically placed there, but still I see them. Or when I'm watching Fox News or Newsmax or OAN, you know, I'll oftentimes see people of color anchoring the news desk or being consulted as pundits, you know. So the Republican Party can't be racist, right? And you know what? Today we're breaking away from the scheduled topic to discuss this because I find myself being asked all too often, yo, Chappy, yo, Chili, hey man, you say that Trump is a racist dude. You say that he's a white nationalist. You say that his administration is composed of the same, that they're doing all of these racist things. But why then are there so many people of color following him? Why are there so many people of color adhering to his policies? Why do we see Latinos saying that the Latino immigrants gotta go? Why do we see so many black men saying things like, you know, well, Trump might be racist, but he's all about getting money, and I respect that. The simple answer, my friends, of course, would be to just go snide, you know. The simple answer would be one given by Malcolm X that I really like, who once commented. He said, "Show me a black man who calls himself a Republican, and I'll show you a Negro who's out of his mind." Remember now, Negro was the term we were using back then in the 60s. Okay? Malcolm said, "Show me a black man who calls himself a Republican, and I will show you a Negro who's out of his mind." Why? Because the last time the Republican Party was ever a friend to people of color was when Lincoln abolished slavery. And even that was not something that was done out of friendship. It was a strategic move, a chess move that was done to weaken the South and force them into surrender. Okay. And of course, as we know, once Lincoln was assassinated, then that whole attitude towards black people, people of color, changed entirely. But the seriousness of this issue begs a much more detailed explanation than just some witty saying or simply falling back on the characteristic excuses and calling people of color who follow Trump, you know, Uncle Toms or House Negroes. It begs for a much more detail. It's deeper than that, people. It's deeper. There are a couple different reasons why we are witnessing this people of color following the man who hates them. First, lack of information. Lack of information. People are not getting the proper information needed to make decisions about who they're going to vote for, which policy, which government, style of government they're going to support. Okay. Another thing, intellectual laziness, which is a part of the first part. Intellectual laziness, being an unwillingness to go after that proper information, to educate oneself politically, socially, okay? And the reason why we see this intellectual laziness is the fact that a lot of people, they want to follow somebody. They want to be told what to do. and they will blindly follow someone, anyone, as long as that person appears to know what they are talking about. Okay? I personally witnessed this years ago. I would listen to the Rush Limbaugh show several times a week just to see what the other side was talking about in terms of political radio. And I'm listening to this man, and he's using all this perfectly worded rhetoric and code words, welfare state, and this, and then he's making the song Barack the Magic Negro that he's playing like every 30 minutes. And I said, oh my God, the people listening to this man are being programmed subtly, unconsciously, subconsciously, and they're being programmed with racist intent, white nationalist intent, and it's all going to spring to the fore at some point. There's another aspect, though, to consider, okay? And this is back to the first impulse, Just like white supremacist ideology is the fuel that powers this MAGA administration, the fuel that emboldens its constituents, likewise, racist ideology is what drives certain people to feel inferior, to hate themselves, to believe that being a person of color is a curse. And a lot of times it's unconscious. It's unknowing. A lot of people are acting this way without even realizing it. In the black community, and particularly in the black martial arts community, there's always been a saying. The saying goes, white ice is always cold. White ice is always cold. This saying comes from the 1930s or so, and it refers to certain inferior-minded black folks who bought so completely into the claim of racial superiority, that the white race was superior to all else, that they automatically believed that anything coming from a white hand was better and superior than that same object being offered from a black one. Matter of fact, you could have two stores sitting side by side. One was white owned, one was black owned, carrying the same products, and the black one would offer it the same product at a better price. And still, because of this inferior type of thinking, these inferior-minded black people would still choose to go to the white-owned store because they believe that anything coming from a white hand was better and superior than that same object being offered from a black one. We see this nowadays with a tendency to frequent whatever white-owned businesses and white-owned restaurants and to shun the black-owned ones. And in case you were wondering how this saying manifested itself in the martial arts community, well, first of all, it manifested itself with all people. First of all, assuming and thinking and preferring to learn martial arts from an Asian person, thinking that they were all just automatically better. Why? Because they were Asian, and they invented martial arts. And if an Asian teacher couldn't be found, then a white one was the next best thing. And black instructors were always considered to be inferior somehow. There's a favorite story in the black martial arts community that illustrates just the effectiveness with which white supremacist ideology has permeated communities of color. There was a man, John Wallace, black guy, out of Brooklyn, New York City. This man was a grandmaster in karate, a 10th degree black belt by the time he was age 45. And he was a 2-time world champion and a 5-time national champion. So he wasn't just an expert teacher. This guy could really fight. So one day, 2 young black men walk into his school in Brooklyn saying that they want to learn karate. When they discover that he is the teacher of the school, they proceed to interview him, in order to make sure that he's worthy and competent enough to teach them. Wallace, he sees these 2 young black men before him. He remembers how he was at that age, young and dumb, stupid, arrogant, and he humbles himself and patiently answers their questions, and then quotes them a very modest tuition fee. Again, seeing 2 young black men, knowing how hard it is at that time to get work due to the systemic racism that was so prevalent back in the 80s, he quotes them a very, very modest fee. They tell him, we'll think about it. We'll let you know. And they leave and proceed to go right downtown into Manhattan, where they see a big old sign, saying, hey, learn karate right here, like so-and-so, and there's a picture of the dude doing the flying side kick. And they go inside, and it's a big old area, and they see one person in there, and it's an Asian guy. And he's got a karate outfit on, just like in the movie. So they go to him and say they want to study. The Asian guy, proceeds to sit them down and grill them. Why do you want to study here? Why should we accept you as students? No matter what he says, they're more than happy to accept the grilling. And then at the end, he quotes them a price, and it's like 5 times more than what John Wallace had quoted them. And they're like, give us a pen. Where do we sign? We can't wait, quickly, eagerly. So they sign up, and he tells them, come next week for your first lesson. They arrive that next week. The school is packed with people. They see the Asian guy. He comes over, directs them where to stand in a row in order to begin the lessons. And then, to their surprise, the Asian guy himself goes and stands in one of the rows also. So they're like, what's this all about? And then suddenly, up at the front of the room, the door opens, and guess who steps out to teach the class? John Wallace. Yeah, it was his school. He owned several schools. The Asian guy was one of his students, okay? And thankfully, these 2 young men were socially aware, were self-aware enough that they realized the blunder, and they humbled themselves and went to the man and apologized, okay? So, to wrap up this segment, people, to explain why there are minorities supporting a MAGA government that is clearly against them, just remember that lack of political education has always been the main answer to their choosing to believe the MAGA racist when he says one thing while he's clearly doing another, okay? Lack of political education, lack of the will to educate oneself, and the need to follow someone else, okay, are the reasons. And lastly, there's also the inferiority complex as a possible reason. Belief that white ice is colder. We're doing big things here, people, and there's a ton of stuff to cover in the upcoming weeks. The man is trying to blow the country up, take us into wars, and they are about to pass this bill that's going to bankrupt the nation. We got to get together in the upcoming weeks and discuss. Remember to tell everybody about what we're doing here, people. Subscribe and follow me on YouTube, Substack, and Instagram. You guys have a great day. And remember, if you're not angry, it's because you're not paying attention.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of the Strange Days audiocast. Peace and blessings, everybody.